Previously on 30 Years in 30 Minutes.
Understand when you have an opportunity and take that risk as an opportunity to grow and see and do things is like the most important thing. There's no better time to take a moonshot than when you're in college. It's a unique opportunity where your risk appetite should be almost infinite. Luck doesn't get enough credit in the world. Sometimes you can make your own luck. Sometimes luck is opportunity meeting hard work, but you have to take advantage as opportunities present themselves.
You were an early investor in companies like Pinterest, Airbnb, Discord, DraftKings, Upwork, StubHub, like you said, Riot Games. What would you say is the number one trait that every billion-dollar founder you've backed had in common?
I'd say they wanted to be a billion-dollar founder. I think they had tremendous individual conviction in those companies, and they believed that this company had not only had the right to exist, was going to be a big company. And if you gave them the right capital and provide them a little bit of help, they were all those founders were great partners, and that they were good listeners and wanted the help. But they believed that their ideas were great, that they could help. I think those were all founder CEOs who took them almost the whole way, that they could drive this company to being a $1 billion plus outcome. They were all right. And I think it's a belief in yourself, but the ability to listen, take advice, and work with mentorship.
I think more specifically, if we're looking at, say, Pinterest. Pinterest was one of your very, very notable investments. You placed a seed bet on Pinterest, and at their IPO, you had a 1,900x return. What did you see in the company that made you invest in it? Obviously, the founders must have been extraordinarily vision-oriented, knew they wanted to become billion-dollar founders. But what did you see in the company that made you say, I want to back that company?
So, yeah, we were the seed investors in Pinterest. They had two people when we invested and no product. But what they believed, and you talked to Ben, and I think Ben is a very compelling founder and is a very thoughtful person. We believed in three things that they believed in. Again, what are your first principle convictions, and what do you believe that may or may not be consensus? And can you find people who have the same non-consensus views? In Pinterest's time, and going back, and it's hard to imagine now, but it was, we invested in the first couple months of the iPhone. So the iPhone had just come out. There was no app store. But, Ben believed that the iPhone was going to change everything, that you were going to be able to have all of your content on your phone. And because you were able to have all your content on your phone and have that mobily, that was going to be the number one place where you consume content. And you were actually going to consume so much content on your phone that you had to have an image-driven content consumption mechanism.
It's crazy that he thought that. Saw that from then.
Saw that before there was even an iPhone. And in addition to that, not only there was so much content you had to be able to see visually, but that was going to have to be curated both by your friends as well as professionals. So there was going to be social as well as kind of group curation. And when you were able to pull all three of those things together, tremendous content, incredibly well curated, visual depictions, you were going to have a next generation of almost search interface where you're able to discover and curate new ideas. And, as Google and search is one of the greatest businesses in the history of time. So if you were able to have, if you were going to be able to be the place where people search and discover new things to buy and experience and do, that was going to be a powerful model. So despite not having a product, not really having anything but an idea, that idea was so powerful and Ben was so compelling that we were compelled to make the investment.
On the other side of the coin, you have companies that I'm sure there were dozens of companies that you missed out on, that you had the opportunity to invest in. What would you say is the company that you most regret not investing in?
Have you heard of Google? Yes. So I was at a board meeting, and another guy who, I'll leave some of the names out for their innocence, said, "Hey, do you want to meet with this company? I think you'd really enjoy it." And I said, "Well, what do they do?" He said, "Well, they're in search, and at the time there was Inktomi, and there was Yahoo, and there was AOL, and there was Akamai, there was Alta Vista and Dogpile, and there was tons of companies in search. And I said, well, it seemed like there's a lot of companies. Like, well, how much revenue do they have? Zero. Oh, okay. So the very competitive market. They don't have any revenue. Do they have any revenue traction? No, not really. Okay, well, what did the guys do before? Nothing. What do you mean by nothing? Well, they were in school, but they just dropped out. No work. Nope.
Oh my gosh.
Guys, so let me get this straight. The guys never done anything. They have a product, but no one's using it or buying it. But maybe because it's in incredibly competitive market space. I'm gonna pass on that introduction.
So what was the argument for investing in Google?
It came around again later that they had the ability to search, and that ability to be able to go through the whole internet and find. The internet was growing so fast. I mean, it was probably a speck of what it is today, but it was growing so fast that the ability to find things on it was going to become increasingly important. And they had the ability to find things much better than I'm trying to remember, but I think it must be better than Yahoo used to try to tag almost every page on the internet, and that's an impossible way to do it. By indexing in the way that Google went about it, made search much more clean and effective and efficient. So they had the ability to do it. So if you could find things better than anywhere else, that was going to be a core thing. Pretty soon after that, they were so good at the search that Yahoo and AOL, who were the two biggest distribution players on the internet at the time, wanted to use their search. And then the next phase after that was, being able to open up AdWords and being able to say, hey, the way we're going to monetize this search is not licensing it to other distribution partners, but putting ads against that intent on the back end. And that's what became, one of the most incredible business models we've seen in our lifetimes.
That's interesting. I want to move more now to the VC industry as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, with AI, crypto, all of that, what would you say is the most overhyped industry within the venture capital space now?
The most interesting thing is I think AI is both most underhyped and overhyped, depending on where you look. We've seen distensions in the markets before, and any amazing new technology creates both a huge bubble as well as a huge opportunity. And we talked a little bit about, in my career, I've seen the advent of the internet, I've seen mobile, I've seen a number of these new trends where people are like, this is going to be everything, and this is going to be a groundbreaking technology. AI is that. I mean, whether you're a consumer, and ChatGPT is the most adopted consumer technology in the history of the world, whether it's some of the advances you're seeing on efficiency on the enterprise side of AI, phenomenal. So those are great opportunities. At the same time, we're seeing anybody with .ai as part of its either DNA or just its URL, able to raise a lot of money at a very high price. So there'll be a lot of money made, but a lot of money lost on that opportunity. And I think the hard part about VC, anytime it goes like that, then these trends happen, is a lot of things are happening very fast. So you have to be able to have a prepared mind and think about them very slowly to make sure you're not investing in the wrong things at the wrong price, but you're investing in one of the great companies at the right price. And so, we've been doing AI here for, I think, 15 years. My partner, Matt, does the AI landscape. It's called the MAD landscape of machine learning, artificial intelligence, and data. I think he's 15 years in. So we've been thinking about this and looking at it for a long time. That gives us the beginning of an infrastructure or a framework for a prepared mind. And then we've seen things. And then one of our core beliefs at FirstMark, going back to our founding, is, we believe in technology that does jobs. And that could be, a consumer technology like Riot Games, which job is, I'm going to entertain you for, a fraction of the price that going to the movies would entertain you. Or it could be enterprise applications, which do jobs for you and drive a high ROI. And, we've seen AI do all of those things, and the best companies drive very high ROI for enterprises. We've seen them do amazing things for consumers, if you think about ChatGPT. And we've also seen a score of companies that do neither of those things, but also, it's sometimes valued at very high prices. So, it makes our job very hard when things move very quickly, but hopefully it opens up a massive amount of opportunity in the AI ecosystem.
So given that, if you had access to unlimited amounts of capital and could start one company today, what company would you start?
I'm trying to think about capital or access, and capital and access are two different things. Often capital can't buy access, and often access will bring capital. So I think part of what the interesting thing in AI is, capital is one of the fuels of that machine. The other fuel is data. So data and data access are incredibly important. So the ability to pull in a massive amount of data around human health is a huge deal. And we've done a lot of things in the healthcare industry. We have Roman Health or Ro.co, which does a really great business around really solving patients' healthcare issues, function health, and really understanding what's going on inside your body and through blood testing. And so I'd love to be able to say, hey, I understand what's going on inside your body. I understand what's going on in terms of maybe some pharmaceuticals you need to take to solve your specific health issues. But being able to put a wrapper around that saying, I understand through your electronic medical records, through your care history, through what you're doing now, through maybe pharmaceuticals you're taking, what's going on in your body, and having a more holistic view of what keeps you healthy. And I think this is all going to come together. I think the good thing is for your listeners who are in college, you could take a much longer view of the world, because I think you're all going to live till well over 100 years old, and you're going to have a phenomenal both lifespan as well as health span. So that's the great news. I think you're going to need a company like this to exist, because you're going to know much more about yourself and what your exercise plans, your eating plans, and everything else you do impacts that health and lifespan. And I think the AI could do a tremendous amount by pulling all that data together and turning that into actionable health information.
So on to the second to last part of the interview.
Yes.
The last part is rapid fire questions. This is just general advice. Based on all of your experiences, all of your successes, all your failures, if you're speaking to somebody who wants to be you, who sees you and says, in X amount of years, I want to be you, what advice would you give them about how to do that?
That's a really hard question. Because I think sometimes you think about your failures as much as your successes. And I think most people put folks on a pedestal, and they say, oh, that would be great to be able to have a VC firm. That'd be great to be, recognized by the media, or, be on television, or whatever other people view as great. There's upsides and downsides to everything. So I always think it's very treacherous for someone to want to be someone else. But I think, being able to achieve some of the things I've achieved, what do you do? I think, first of all, you have to really commit yourself to it. I think Alex Karp has talked about it at Palantir, and a lot of other people have talked about, really investing a lot in yourself in your 20s. And I think we talked about learning as being a key component of that. The second piece is working very hard. So making sure, if you really want to be successful in the medium and long term, you're going to invest heavily in the short term to do that. And the other internet meme that goes around is, easy path, hard life, hard path, easy life. And be willing, in the beginning of your career, to take the hard path, invest in yourself, and think about playing the longest game in the room, because that's how you get to where you wind up on top in the end. So I think the thinking about having a long view, but at the same time working very hard every day, is how you get to any success.
And what would you tell young, aspiring venture capitalists who want to start their own venture capital firm? What would you tell them they need to do to start their own VC firm? How do you think they should go about it?
So I talk to a lot of people like that all the time. And one of the things I say is, I understand you want to start a VC firm. Does anyone else want you to start that, right? Who are you going to be your investors? That you wanting something doesn't mean it should exist. So if you want to start your own VC firm, Understand that. It's totally understandable. It's a great job. You're seeing the future. You're working with founders. That's really great. So, but why should, no different than any other business, why should you exist? Why does the world need another VC firm? And there's a million different ways to do it. In my mind, we started FirstMark. We talked about the three pillars of sector stage and geographic bias and being able to fill a hole in the market. Anyone out there who's looking to start a VC firm is say, I've done it no different than other business. I've done the market analysis. I believe there's a hole in the market, and I think I'm uniquely suited to fill that hole for this reason. That I believe I've done the analysis. I believe that a seed stage video game startups using next generation tools, you could build capital efficiently, and I've done more work around video games than anyone else, and I think I'm uniquely suited to help both discover those companies and help those companies get from here to there. And that's why I should exist.
How do you think people can make themselves uniquely suited to do that?
Again, I think it probably goes back to, do you have experiences which make you uniquely suited? Or have you thought about the industry enough and you've done enough research that you have a unique opinion? That, saying that AI is going to be big doesn't make you uniquely suited to do anything. It's conventional wisdom. You want to have something that's going to be non-conventional wisdom. You want to have something that's truly a unique perspective. It might be wrong, and most non-consensus opinions are wrong, but you're willing to stick your neck out for that and work really hard. That we've made a lot of investments in things that are non-consensus. A lot of them haven't worked out. Some of them have worked out because we've worked hard with the founders through it to figure out, therefore, how do we pivot and get from here to there? So, but I think in order to get people to want to invest in you and give you capital to invest, they have to believe that you're unique, and because of your unique opinion, you're going to have unique access. With that unique access, founders will choose to work with you. And because you're right in your thesis, those companies will become big, and therefore they'll be able to make money on the investment in your fund.
Makes sense. So on to the rapid fire questions now. What is a quote that you live by?
Longest view in the room. Take the longest view in the room. That I think a lot of people are increasingly myopic, trying to get what they want to get maybe out of a conversation, out of a negotiation, scratch the itch they have today. Fewer and fewer people are willing to take the long view of how to build relationships, how to build companies, and how to build your life. And that's the secret to happiness.
What is your biggest regret?
I think my biggest regret is not getting into entrepreneurship sooner. I think I love being an entrepreneur. When I was doing it as a kid, I didn't see a path to it. I wish I would have done something sooner, but at the same time, I think my entrepreneurial path has been fantastic.
What is a book that you recommend?
I'd probably recommend Moneyball. I think we talked a lot about thinking differently, and Moneyball was how Billy Beane, with a different group of assets, a lesser group in a lot of people's mind of assets, and especially financial assets and money, was able to build the Oakland A's into a championship team because he thought about the world differently.
What is one founder pitch you'll never forget, either because it was so good or because it was so bad?
Underwear.com, because everybody needs underwear.
Did you invest in it?
No. But I think it wound up being a successful company at the time because they were right. Everyone needs underwear.
What is a common piece of advice for founders that you totally disagree with?
Follow your passion. That sometimes your passion is correct and sometimes your passion is doesn't make sense. I think you have to follow your customers rather than your passion.
What is a founder email subject line that has made you laugh out loud?
Urgent, invest today. Your next 10,000 times your money investment. Or you're not a very, I think one said, I heard you're a very good venture capitalist, but if you don't invest in us, you're not a very good venture capitalist. That was the first line of the email, but not the subject line, but still pretty good.
Did you respond to those emails?
I don't think I got to the bottom of either.
What is a completely non-business experience that's made you a better investor?
I think pushing myself. I actually just came off, went hiking in Peru and did the Incan Trail at 15,000 feet. And it was hard. and we had to sleep in tents, and I'm awful old to be sleeping in a sleeping bag in tents in 40-degree weather above the cloud line. And I'm like, oh, I'm too old for this shit. Like, this is really hard. But I think, continuing to do very hard things and pushing yourself continues to make you mentally strong and get you to think, separates you a little bit from the world. That, when you're hiking at that level and you're sweating and breathing heavy and your heart's racing because it's trying to get oxygen into your blood, you're definitely not thinking about what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. So it provides you the separation from your day-to-day, but also it pushes you physically, which helps push you and grow and shows you what you can do.
Second to last question. What is the biggest red flag in any startup pitch?
Talking about the exit in the first meeting, where people say, you're guaranteed to get a 30x because I've done the math. And if you invest $1 today, you're going to get $30 in 3 years because I've done all the math. Like especially at the seed stage where the product doesn't exist. No one knows what's going to happen in the market. You want to build a business that makes their customers happy, that people are going to want to buy, and then the rest should take care of itself.
And last, the next $1 trillion company will be built by someone who
is able to harness AI to handle large problems in healthcare or financial services.
Rick, it has been an absolute pleasure and honor to interview you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. This was awesome.
Really appreciate it.
People enjoy it.
Thank you.
Great.
It's awesome.
Thank you for listening to 30 Years in 30 Minutes. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and let us know in the comments if there's anyone else you want to hear from.